Flabbergasted podcast, where we just can't believe you haven't seen it. Every episode, we discuss a movie that one of us has seen and the other hasn't. Follow us on Instagram @FlabberPod and subscribe in your podcast app of choice. I'm your host, Jessica. Let's get to it.
Today we are talking about Rocky 3, the third installment of our Rocky series. Rated PG, released 1982. This is 3 years after Rocky 2. And it was written and directed by Sylvester Stallone, starring... it's pretty much a returning cast, except for Mr. T, who is the antagonist in this one. Rotten Tomatoes score of 66%. And then the audience is 74%. And then 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb. It grossed $270 million, and it is, according to IMDb, the fourth highest grossing film that year, behind E.T., Tootsie, and An Officer and a Gentleman.
Behind E.T., Tootsie, and An Officer and a Gentleman?
I can't believe Tootsie
in that
beat
order,
it
yeah.
out.
What were those in that order? E.T.
E.T. was
Tootsie
by far
beat
number one.
An Officer
Yes.
and a Gentleman? I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought it was kind of
yeah.
funny, but...
It was...
I
Yeah.
have never seen Tootsie, but when I'm looking up this information and I see the front cover, I'm like...
Tootsie is not worth
Mrs.
watching.
Doubtfire,
so
but
bad.
It was-
less family friendly.
Yeah, it was Dustin Hoffman, the guy that played Rain Man, another movie that you've never seen, with Tom Cruise.
Dustin Hoffman. What would you know that he's in?
I know
Meet
Dustin
the Fockers,
Hoffman.
Oh,
maybe.
oh yeah. There you
Never
go.
seen Meet the Fockers or seen Meet the Parents.
Oh,
He's
But
not
I
in
know
that.
Dustin Hoffman.
okay.
Okay.
A very young Dustin
I know
Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman, and I know
Yeah.
what Rain Man is, and I know who he plays there.
He's an actor that is horrible to work with in the movie, and he can't get a job. And so, in order to get a job, he dresses up as a woman and auditions as a
Very
woman.
different than Rain Man.
Yes, very different than Rain Man.
Roll credits.
Okay, anyways, keep going. E.T.,
So-
Tootsie, Officer and Gentleman,
Yeah, and then Rocky.
Rocky 3.
Yep, Rocky 3 that year. That was the fourth highest grossing movie that year. And I think Rambo came out the same year, but that was further down. It was like, I don't remember what it was. It was like 14th or something like that.
And Rambo's also,
It was First Blood or Rambo?
First Blood.
Okay.
which is
Because Rambo was First Blood Part 2.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Sylvester
Okay.
Stallone as well. I don't know if it was written and directed by Stallone, but this movie was.
First Blood was not written by him. It's based off a book, if memory serves.
So 8 minutes in, I wrote this down. 8 minutes in, and I already feel like this is a better movie.
What happens is 8 minutes. It starts off with the end of 2, just
Yes.
like every
Yep.
Rocky movie starts with the end of the previous one. So,
Basically, you get hit with a montage right up front.
oh yeah,
Yes.
I love that too.
I'm a big montage person, apparently.
Fun fact on that one. Originally, they tried to get Another One Bites the Dust from Queen, and they couldn't get the rights to it. So Survivor was actually handpicked by Sylvester Stallone as a very unknown group to write the and they wrote Eye of the
They
Tiger.
wrote it for the movie?
Because they got to see the movie before, which usually is a big no-no, but he let them watch it. And when Apollo was talking about the Eye of the Tiger, he's like, the lead singer of Survivor's like, we'd be stupid if we didn't make that. Sorry, I don't. We'd be stupid if we didn't call this Eye of the Tiger, and literally did it to the montage. They wrote a song for it, which is why it has that beat to it. So I thought that was really neat because I watched and loved that movie for probably 30 years before I found that out.
That's one of the songs, again, I'm looking up the Get Pumped playlist for before games and sports games and stuff like that, and Eye of the Tiger is always one that's right up there.
Yes.
And I did note somewhere in my notes, every time they say Eye of the Tiger a lot, and I'm like, there's a drinking game for you. If you're a drinker, take a shot. Every time they say Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
They say it
About
5 times.
About 20 minutes of the movie, and then it's done. So it better be pretty potent.
Well, okay. But I definitely noticed they say it a bunch of times in a weird way. I don't know. It seemed forced sometimes.
Everclear and Eye of the Tiger.
There you go.
Well, this was the debut of the Eye of the Tiger, which whenever anybody thinks Rocky, I'm pretty sure Eye of the Tiger comes
That's
to
the
mind.
first one you think of.
So
yeah.
this song also, by the way, this movie got like 9 nominations and 3 wins, 3 awards. Most of that was literally just Eye of the Tiger.
My other note for this is when I looked it up to find where I could stream it, it's very specifically Roman numeral 3.
Yep.
Like, so even if I'm searching, I have to type, like, if I use the number 3, it doesn't really work when I'm looking for it places. It's kind of weird.
Yep. Well, I tell you, too, some of my fond memories, I mentioned this in the last podcast if it wasn't edited out from the man behind the curtain there. My first ever memory of seeing cable television back in the 80s was Rocky III was playing. It was in the middle of Rocky III, but I got to sit down and watch that. And I still remember it. It's like etched into my memory. Then I moved back. That was in North Carolina, and I was in 3rd grade, making sure 1, 2, 3, 4. 2nd grade, excuse me. I was in 2nd grade. And then I moved back. And when I moved back, eventually I go back to my grandmother's at the end of my 3rd grade year. And it's the first time they just bought this weird contraption called a VCR.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Curtis Mathis is the name of the video rental place in Warsaw. And you'd go out to Curtis Mathis and pick movies. And my uncle, probably for almost a year straight, because we all get to pick a movie every week, I would pick Bruce Lee movies and things like that, and he would pick Rocky III every week. So even back then, it was like a big deal, and basically, it like raised your testosterone by at least 20% every time you heard Eye of the Tiger and watched it.
I feel it would be bigger, more so back then, because that's when it came out.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And then I feel like another reason why this movie probably you liked more is you said before that when you watched the movie Rocky, you were surprised how little boxing actually was.
Yes.
One of the things Sylvester Stallone said about this movie was that due to the success of 2, he made a 3rd one and had no ideas. So it had a lot more boxing in it because he was out of ideas for a plot.
I think that's why I liked it. I really don't know anything about boxing, but it's so much more believably a boxing movie, and I really like that.
I mean, like with me, like Jessica has a lot of experience with me as a coach, and actually Joe does too, but I was coaching him. But you coached with me, but one of my favorite things to do is to break things down and build them back up fundamentally sound. I love that because it's always best practices. And what I love about this is Rocky goes through that whole process, and he's at the top of the mountain, and yet he still has to get broke down and built back up.
Yeah.
And it was pretty amazing, the end result. Not to jump ahead, but...
So in the montage, I've noted a few things. One, Rocky got way more defined muscles in this movie. So I don't know if he built it up specifically for this, but he's definitely more defined in this role and more muscular.
It was actually for Rambo.
I was going to ask, since you said it came out the same-ish time.
Yeah, he even talked about, like, he was, I don't know why I remember this, but this was an interview this was an interview in the 80s I happened to catch, and he was talking about something, and they flashed up a picture of him and Rocky II. He goes, "Oh, that's terrible. Look how out of shape I am." Even though he was toned, he was muscular, but in this movie he had, like, the full six-pack and everything. And
would you say, like, this and Rambo, like, did this start the whole, like, muscle definition in the movies? Because Arnold came over from the bodybuilding around the same time, right?
He was his first big one. Like, he did the Hercules movie, but really it was Conan the Barbarian that really put him on the map. And they basically put him in a movie where it didn't matter if he didn't talk.
Right.
But he was huge.
Was huge, yeah.
But
same with Terminator. He didn't really have to talk.
I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking back to 70s action movies.
Even if you think of Hulk.
Lou Ferrigno.
Like, I mean, he had definition, but he wasn't like...
Yeah.
And it was also
I feel like they've
specific
taken it
that
to the
role.
extreme
And Christopher
now,
Reeve
right?
was-
Because they're
was-
saying,
Yeah, Christopher Reeve was muscular, but he wasn't completely chiseled.
Yeah.
And that was Superman,
which is like, that comes in with the whole dehydration to get that cut that the actors have now when they're doing the action movies.
Yeah.
I would say that it definitely became a lot more prominent after that, even if it's not like the first time that you see it. It's definitely
Kind of started
there's
trending.
a whole
up.
80s, 90s like action movie trope.
Yeah, because so 70s, you're thinking they're action guys like Charles Bronson. He's not really even that huge. Who was the guy in The Great Escape? Steve McQueen. Again, a guy that was just kind of cool, and it was more attitude than actual muscle makeup. And again, I could be forgetting a whole bunch of people that were, but even back then, the James Bond villain was a giant 7 foot something guy. He was not chiseled. He was just big and bulky. Speaking for myself and probably every other man in America besides the 0.02% that are built like that, that part makes you feel a little inferior. But then I could also tell you the 12-year-old me was out listening to Eye of Tiger and doing
You're like,
shadow
"I'm gonna get
boxing in the
ripped."
dirt. Well, it wasn't even that. It was getting. I felt like I could fight better just by watching that.
Yeah, it was inspiring. So I'm still on the montage though, because Rocky is on the Muppets, and you know you've made it when you get to be on the Muppets. Like, I
true.
love that.
And then he does the little American Express, which is where, like it used to be, where everybody, if you've made it, you have an American Express
card.
and you show
Yeah.
that commercial.
Yeah, so he's obviously, he hit his stride with the reading thing. He started doing the commercials again. He's reaching out to a lot of charities and doing the charity work, which I think everybody appreciates, right?
Yeah.
I have on here that there's actually a pretty big significance to this montage where you see the title defenses and you see this as well.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of setting up his failure, in my opinion. This is what I see, because you kind of see him go more to like business, leaning towards
Getting
like more
soft.
like business guy, getting kind of soft, which he doesn't have the passion and the drive that he had in the first two movies when he had the one goal in mind and everything was dedicated to this goal. He didn't have the eye of the tiger. And so I think that right off the bat, even though they don't say it, you see that in the montage, you see the back-to-back going from title defenses to, mediocre fighters. And then you see him with the businesses and the commercials, and he's on the Muppets. And you just kind of see him get soft. So he kind of loses that.
My question is, you said you see him get soft, but how much of that is him and how much of that was his manager protecting him from taking the hard fights?
Yeah. Which
I would say that it's the byproduct of his manager kind of taking it easy on him, is that he just kind of it was both. I mean, with the fighting, he was fighting the mediocre fights. I mean, to kind of go later on to the movie, he's fighting the mediocre fights not because he thinks they're mediocre fights, but because basically they're picking contenders that are good fighters, but they're not
Challenging.
dangerous. They're not a challenge.
Yeah.
And they're not pushing him in any sort of way, because Mickey also got soft, and the relationship that they had that grew in the first two movies kind of just made Mickey want to protect Rocky.
Yeah.
But even if Mickey hadn't done that and he was fighting those challenging fights, he still just kind of loses the same aggression and passion that he had when he had nothing to lose and was just going all at it.
Yeah, I think of the continuity, too, is looking at this, the timeline, you had Rocky 1, then less than a year later is Rocky 2, and then he starts fighting all these fighters. Well, you're just a few years removed from him being some ham and egger, some nobody who was fighting club fights, and I'm still thinking about the fact that he had such poor vision on one side that
Right.
Mickey could slap him, and yet he's doing all these title defenses.
Which I wrote down that it said 10 title fights somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And about 3 years since he beat Apollo.
And it looks like he's
From what I can
basically completely untouched in those. Like he was just destroying everybody without getting hit. And so he's getting stronger, and his strength is that he could take a punch, and he can punch.
Yeah.
But let's face it, one of the big glaring things that he never learned to do was actually put his guard up.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And so that was what the thing was, to see him knocking all these guys out and he's not getting hit as much. That would tell me that you've dropped your level quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
I really liked the Mr. T character because I think he just wanted what Rocky wanted in the first movie. Like, he just wanted a shot.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
That was his first acting role ever. He was a bouncer and they found him and brought him in. Yeah, it was pretty good first role. He wasn't even in the A-Team yet. The A-Team was cast after that. Even if not jumping too far ahead, but Hulk Hogan, he wasn't Hulk Hogan yet. He was still Terry Boulder, Thunder Lips, and he was about to go to the WWF at that time. It's now the WWE, and he was going to win the title from the Iron Sheik in January of 1984, if memory serves.
And in the movie, that fight was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, but it was funny.
I'm like...
Bob Hope would do it.
What?
No, that's true.
You don't remember that joke?
Yeah.
I think that whole scene is hilarious, and they just keep going with the jokes.
How much do you think he eats?
Yes.
About 202 pounds. And
I love that.
202
I actually wrote LOL, 202
Yeah.
pounds. That was definitely funny. But then he's just throwing him around, and the whole time I'm like, oh, ow, oh my gosh. And then at the end, he's like, well, okay, let's get a picture. And I'm like,
Yeah, and
that's
funny.
horrible.
While you're still calm, let's get a picture.
And then it's funny though, but that is how it was like, because if Hulk Hogan was on, there was like a switch, and he was Hulk Hogan, or in that one, Thunder Lips. When you turn that switch off, the show's over. But usually that's not done in the ring. So they had something in wrestling that was really big called kayfabe back then. And kayfabe is you live the character even when you're not wrestling in the ring. So if you get seen, say Iron Sheik was feuding with the Junkyard Dog, and you get seen together at a restaurant, even because you're probably friends in real life, that would get you in really big trouble. So even him doing that movie and acting like that,
he had to be in character.
he was in character. But then when he got off there, I think he didn't get permission, and it almost messed up the WWF stuff way back then.
Yeah.
But it worked out pretty good for him, I'd say. He's like one of the most recognized names and faces in the world, and he was a wrestler.
Yeah.
So, but that was funny. It was, although the most unbelievable thing was him trying to pick him up and body slam him.
Yeah.
That was so pathetic.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
I did write down too, because at the beginning, a lot of this stuff is happening, and how much energy it takes for Mickey to yell all the time.
Yes.
Like, that guy was making me tired by yelling all the time, which that's the character. I get it. But I just wrote, holy cow, like, I'm exhausted listening to him.
Now that's the thing. When you saw him training again, we talked about Rocky getting soft, but Mickey went right back to it. He even wanted, let's go back
to
some
the gym.
Blood and sweat and tears in the old gym there, and he wanted to get back at it, and Rocky wasn't even having it. That was it was a really good setup, the whole montage and going through there. And then Clubber Lang never even being in the same room with Rocky. And then so going to the retirement scene where they do the statue, which that statue is still in Philadelphia. It's not on the top of the steps anymore. It's over to the side, to the right, if you're facing the steps.
Yeah, I have pictures of it from when I went to Philadelphia.
Yeah, me and my 4 kids went there, and I had to show them that I was faster than them, so I raced them up the steps and won. And then probably looked like Mickey when he was yelling and got out of breath, but I made it.
Yeah.
Now, probably my kids were probably in like 3rd grade and under too, but I don't think that's relevant. But yeah, so that whole thing where that happens and he goes to retire, that personal attack gets him to want to challenge him.
Yeah.
So the story's just well told. It's well told. You could see that. I thought that like I related to some of Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 though. That was less relatable to me. But then in Rocky 3, what would get someone getting ready to retire to go back is that personal insult to his wife.
He was fine until
I could see that
he
working.
brought Adrian into it.
Yeah.
Joe, you had 3 pages of notes. Hit us with some stuff.
If we are now at the statue scene...
Well, you can go back if you want. We don't have to jump around. These are just the things I liked.
Yeah, I was trying to move forward in chronological order this time because last time I kept jumping ahead. But
chronological order, you skipped like 40 minutes of the movie because you went from Thunderlips and now we're at the statue.
That's pretty close to Thunderlips.
But you skipped Polly. You skipped meeting Polly.
What about Polly?
Meeting. You see Polly right after that. You see Polly's kind of like...
Oh, he's drunk and he wants a job and he's jealous. Wah, wah, Polly.
And then he gets the job.
And he tried. I like the fact he tried to fight him and he's out of breath. Come a job. All you had to do was ask.
Yeah.
And then...
Polly's the worst.
What does he call the watch? X-Lax?
This lousy X-Lax watch.
Yeah,
and he throws, keep it and never... Leave it. It never kept good time.
Yeah, but you see Polly kind of getting jealous with all the fame that Rocky's getting, and he's drunk because he's Polly, so he's gonna be drunk. And then you see Rocky come out. I don't remember why Rocky was there. Why didn't they meet up?
Because he had to bail him out of jail because he threw a beer bottle at a Rocky pinball machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Rocky's there to pick him up, which you just see Polly whining and complaining when Rocky's doing him a favor, bailing him out of jail.
Didn't tell his sister.
And, didn't tell his sister, and they have this little scuffle, and I like the fact that Polly finally gets told what's what, when he's like, listen, I have it written down here. What did he say?
Nothing but a jealous, lazy bum.
Yeah, he said, you ain't down and you ain't a loser, but you're just a lazy, jealous bum. So he's not being a jerk. He's not trying to put him down because it's his friend, but he's letting him know.
Yeah. Well, he hit his limit because he kept saying, I don't owe you. And he's like, friends owe. No, friends do because
they want to
do.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point that you can bring to real life too. And I love that Rocky could say that to him.
Yep.
And Polly could choose to stay in that relationship or just be like, whatever, you don't like me, this is too hard, and leave the relationship. Because that happens. And you hear something you don't like from somebody you feel like you love and you trust, and then you have the choice to listen and see what they're saying or just walk away. And
you've also got the fact that Rocky's keeping him around when Rocky's now incredibly rich and incredibly famous, and he's keeping him around.
Which is a whole other side of the thing. Like,
and you also,
do you keep toxic people in your life?
Well, he's married to his sister, so part of that is that. But also they were friends before he made it, and they went through a lot of stuff together. And
I know,
Polly has a pattern of blowing up, doing something really destructive and horrible, but Rocky still is loyal, and he comes back and he asks for some token thing, and all of a sudden mends the fences by allowing him. Like when he does something, then he goes and say, hey, can I use your name to make some money? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. That's just Rocky didn't change that part of him ever.
Yeah. What were you going to say about Polly, Joe?
You see that Polly's more like Rocky's the one with all the money now and all the fame now, but Polly has more of the I'm too good for this attitude for everything. Like the whole time he's like, I'm too good for this, when he's the one who's broke and an alcoholic, and Rocky's still pretty humble even after all this, and then Polly is the one who's entitled when he has nothing and no reason to be entitled for anything.
Yeah, they never said why he stopped working for Gazzo as a collector for a loan shark.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
You just see him there, and I don't know what happened, but probably couldn't collect because from that scene in the parking lot, he could not fight. But yeah, he always
You also can't be drunk on the job all the time.
Yeah. And he knows if he wears him out long enough,
He'll
he
give
gets
in.
his way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like how often did he say he wasn't going to tell Gazzo to give him a job, and he kept weighing on him, and he just he overhears him saying, well, he don't know nothing about fight and all that, and he's like, I don't want nothing from you, and he starts busting things up with the bat in Rocky 1.
Yeah.
And ends up friends again after that, not too long, and then he's asked him in Rocky 2, would you ask Gazzo? And he's like, okay, I'll do it. Like they never had the conversation before. So Paulie knows that he can do whatever he wants, and Rocky will eventually accept him again. Again, not something that I would recommend for your life, but I do understand loyalty, and I do understand seeing the best in people that nobody else can see. Because I used to be like, if you looked at me, you might see Paulie in me when I was a teenager, because I was pretty stinking annoying, and I may not have done destructive things like him, but I did stuff to push people away in my life very much like him. So maybe you see that, and he was an underdog too. He just wasn't likable.
Yeah. Be likable, people. That's the key to
Yeah.
success. What else you got?
Well, when you're going on and when you move on in the movie and Rocky's back at home and he's got his wife and his kids, Mickey's moved in with him.
I loved that.
Mm-hmm. And fun fact about that, the exterior of the house that they use, it was Muhammad Ali's house at the time.
Oh.
So they used that. His house, the exterior of his house was actually just Muhammad Ali's. That's where he lived at the time.
That's cool.
So that was one of the things that Paulie was complaining about, was that Mickey got to move in and Paulie didn't get to move in.
Yep. Then goes through calling him a lazy, jealous bum, tries to swing on him, and after that he's out of breath. Can I have a job? All you had to do was ask.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got a job. And then you're back to the Thunder Lips scene, the wrestling scene, which, something about that was actually one of the most difficult and time-consuming things to film. It took 10 days to film that one scene. So, 5 or 6 minutes of screen time, that took 10 days to get all that footage.
Yeah.
To film that all.
I think, but think about this. The movie without that would be pretty heavy. Going through all that, and without that was a nice comic relief moment.
Yeah.
It's like when you're doing public speaking, if you go too long without something to reset, a little joke or something, it makes it harder for the audience to maintain focus. And so I think that was a nice fun scene, but it also moved the story along with Mickey getting more signals that, you knew he was going to die.
Oh, yeah, because he's grabbing his chest and breathing heavy.
Yep.
In a telling kind of way.
Yep.
I called that one early on. Because
Yeah.
I didn't know that he died when I watched it. I mean, I knew after I watched it, but I didn't know going in that was going to be his last film.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last Rocky film.
Yeah, the first time you see him clutch his chest and have a hard time breathing and turning red, you're like, oh, they're setting this up to kill him off.
It doesn't help that he's yelling all the time, so you
No.
automatically know his blood pressure is ridiculous.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Yep.
And then now we go to the statue unveiling, which, fun fact about that, the band that's playing there is the band from the high school that he went to, Lincoln High School.
the high school
That Sylvester Stallone went to, Lincoln High School. And that scene, I also noticed that when Mr. T starts kind of
heckling.
baiting him, kind of, is the same kind of thing that Apollo was using in Rocky 2 when he wanted that rematch.
Yeah.
He was when he started attacking his pride, he can only take it for so long, and then he breaks, and Mickey breaks too, in Rocky 2. But and then this is when you find out that Mickey is kind of protecting and sheltering Rocky, and has been for 3 years.
But then he agrees, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to talk it out, but fine, I'll train you for this fight.
Yeah. And it's, to me, like Apollo went after him. He never messed with Adrian. Well, we already established Adrian is what makes him tick.
Yeah.
The first movie, it was that connection there, and him talking about what he's going to do to not be a loser was confided into her, and she kind of supported. Like, one of the favorite lines was just this offhanded comment. He was talking about, I can't win and this and that. Nobody thinks can. And she says, what are we going to do about it? In Rocky 1, I'm like, well, that's a really solid line, because that is how she can strengthen him without even being there. And then in Rocky 2, of course, we know...
Not enough, because he gets the crap beaten out of him.
Yeah, but that's okay, because he was connected to her. But in the second one, she literally gives him the green light.
Well, in this one too, but that's later on.
That's what I was saying.
Favorite ones.
I'm getting to that point there is what happened is the personal attacks would not have got a big reaction out of him. They never did with Apollo. Even when he was hurt and he was quiet. But boy, the second he touched and talked about Adrian and touched on a nerve there, he just went off. So
I think that's a key difference, that you're watching Apollo in the first movie and he's mouthy, they're trash talking a little bit, but there is an underlying respect there. I feel like even when he's getting really upset with him and baiting him, but with Mr. T, he just comes out harsh with no respect at all.
yes,
And I can kind of understand that. You've worked with people that are not pulling their weight, and it's frustrating, and you've already tipped into that. You don't have any grace for them, and you're already frustrated with how they're not performing or whatever. And I think that's where Mr. T is. Like, he doesn't have any grace at all for him, and he's just mad that that Rocky is holding this title and not giving anybody else a shot at it.
Well, not giving him a shot at it. He's giving everybody but him a shot at it.
Good call, yes.
And
he's not
also,
giving him a shot at it.
The breaking point is that he's now retiring, so he's never going to get a shot at it.
Which,
so this is...
I don't understand that. So you retire...
then he's the number one contender.
Right.
Just they'd have a tournament. I think I don't know why
I don't
it
know
had
why
to be Rocky.
Yeah, I don't know why you have to fight him.
I think it's just because everybody agrees that Rocky's the best. Like,
you can't be the best if you don't beat the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's not realistic.
Well, that's Ric Flair.
It's a pride thing.
Oh, old Ric Flair. To be the man, you've got to beat the man. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but.
And then I also have that when we notice that Rocky's kind of softened up, Mickey also says that one of the reasons why he's been protecting him is because he says, quote, "You got civilized."
Yeah.
So in the first two movies, he's just throwing everything he's got at it, and that's all that matters. But now he got civilized.
It's one of those things where you're swinging up so far that you're playing with house money. Like, if you lose, okay, we already knew that. But then if you
There's not a lot of
to
risk.
win, but once he wins the title, then at that point in time, especially after he gets a couple defenses, it's really easy to think you've arrived.
Right.
We do that think about any job you've had. You start out there, you're really intense in making sure that you're doing everything you can to show them that you're the right candidate and that you belong. Once you get to a certain point, though, a lot of people take the foot off the gas instead of keeping on and building on from there. And I don't know what obviously he still stayed in shape, but did he build into his skill set? I don't know. And then,
yeah,
I think he just kind of stayed stagnant. I think he just kind of maintained where he would work out and he would, practice and train. But then when it came to the defenses and title defenses and what he was putting into his training, he just kind of maintained. He didn't try and go any further than that because he just didn't really feel a need to.
There was a lack of intensity, which we got to see. It wasn't a training montage this time. It was just him on an exercise bike and Mickey yelling, complaining, and people having a party in the atmosphere.
Oh, that was the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put on here that the actual fight was just a totally reactionary thing. Clubber Lang says is just attacking him the whole time and then makes the comment about his wife. And so then as a reaction, he's like, all right, you want it, you got it. And so the fight's just a completely reactionary thing. There's really nothing behind it.
Yeah.
And then he has that talk with Mickey, and now there's kind of like, okay, I've got to prove it to myself, and I've got to prove it to Mickey because Mickey doesn't even have faith in me at this point.
Yeah.
Mickey doesn't even have faith. So it's kind of like he feels it there when Mickey's telling him there, but it doesn't take him long to lose that intensity because when it comes to training, he's
not committed to the training. Yeah.
Which, another fun fact about that training scene, you remember the girl that came up to him when he was on the exercise bike and said, "Hey, Rocky, can I get a kiss?"
Yeah.
That was his wife at the time. She got to cameo in the film. So
Aww.
she came up for that.
Oh, and his, well...
Not as much because they're divorced
Rocky,
now, but...
Yeah,
They're
because
still sweet
the
at the
next
time.
Rocky movie, he has a different wife. And she's in that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
She plays the Russian's wife, ironically enough. So, Ivan Drago, you have this belief that you are so very good and we are so very bad. So she was a
Interesting.
Russian.
So they get to are we cutting to the fight scene, the first fight scene?
Well, you got the attempted interview beforehand.
Well,
where he's in that, and he doesn't want any reporters in there, and he's like going off.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. I also, little story about this movie. When I was a kid, after I saw it for the first time, I liked this movie a lot. I went to go rewatch all the Rocky movies tons and tons of times. But when I was a kid, and specifically with Rocky 3, this training scene wouldn't just be like, it's annoying. It got me so mad that I couldn't watch it. So every time from the first time that I watched it, after that, every time I watched it,
You fast-forwarded?
I skipped to, right when the first start was fighting. So I didn't even watch, the interviews and stuff like that. I watched when Rocky gets into the ring and loses.
Yeah.
I skipped that whole part
You
because
don't even watch Mr. T push Burgess
No.
Meredith around
No.
Yeah.
Because I was so, furiously angry. It was like...
at Rocky.
I could not handle watching this because I'm like, get it together. And every single time I want him to get it together, but I know that he can't. And so it infuriated, little, 11-year-old me so much that I just could not handle watching that.
I think
had
that's
to
so
skip
in
it.
character for you, Josiah.
Yeah.
From that time in your life.
Yeah, that was the nepotism scene because he always has to get his brother singing in there. That's back when his brother wanted to act and sing and couldn't do either very well. I mean, he's got an okay voice, but nothing you'd want on the radio. But he's over there singing, pushing, getting ready for the fight. It's like a cheesy 70s beat.
Yeah.
And we're in the mid-80s. And it's
Yeah.
like, ugh. And he's back in the background there.
Oh, yeah.
And then also before the actual fight, when you're seeing Rocky train this way completely, it's literally just a show. He's not working
He's
hard.
not actually training.
But you see the parallel of Clubber Lang working hard.
Yes.
Clubber Lang sweating and screaming and growling and
Those
Yeah.
wall pull-ups, those are hard to do, and you could just see him and his back muscles just ripped as he's going up
you
and
can
down.
tell that
Yeah.
they're hard to do by the screaming that he's doing as he's doing that. Yeah.
Was he actually standing on a chair and just bending his legs, and that was out of the
Doesn't
out of
really
the
matter, but
So
he looked the part. He definitely looked the part. He went from being a bouncer in a bar to acting in this role, and he just played a thug really well. And it's funny because one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid was the A-Team. You didn't miss it, I remember I had Cub Scouts, get done, come home, A-Team's on. Watching it on a black and white TV. I'm black and white TV A-Team old. That's how old I am. But he was always my favorite character, although I did like Murdoch too, the crazy guy. So the guy that everybody was supposed to like, I didn't care about Hannibal.
I don't remember the A-Team very well. I remember the opening sequence vaguely.
Yeah, one thing you're going to know is there's always wrecks and explosions, but you will never, ever see someone die. It's funny. You'll see a car roll 10 times. All the bad guys get out of the car just as it explodes. Even the bad guys
nice.
didn't die. It was just... even as a little kid in third grade, I was recognizing, man,
A
they
little
never
cheesiness.
die.
Yeah. Those are the same bad guys from last week.
It's not that. It wasn't
No,
that
I'm just
bad,
teasing.
but yeah. But that was, I seen that before I got to watch all of Rocky 3.
Okay.
So I saw a little bit of that on that cable. I didn't get to watch all of it because I wasn't there that long. But then, and I don't believe I watched any of the boxing. And then when the first role I saw Mr. T in was the A-Team. And then going back and watching Rocky 3, I'm like, man, he's just good. He's a good actor. He's nothing like BA on this. That's the first time you've seen that mohawk and all that. And Mr. T, I pity the fool.
Which was his, actually, is what I heard.
Yeah, he got it from I think it was some Indian tribe had that as one of their signature haircuts, and he liked it and adopted it. But that's the first time he said, I pity the fool.
I did write that down, which apparently I read somewhere that he doesn't ever say that on the A-Team.
That was his catchphrase. I don't know if he's...
I know.
So I
So
don't
maybe
know
it was
how
just
he didn't
not
say it.
accurate.
Yeah, I would imagine he said it on there. I'm almost 100% sure. Never? Never said I pity him? He did on commercials and stuff, though.
Yeah.
And it was like on T-shirts, I pity
Yeah.
the fool. It was like a catchphrase.
Well, and that's why I thought it was funny that it came from the Rocky movie, because you know him from A-Team.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe people know him from Rocky more.
Because I'm sitting there. You ever seen that meme with, who is it, Leonardo Caprio, where he's pointing at the TV like, oh, and it got some meme on it?
It's from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Do you know? I'm going to type Leonardo Caprio.
Okay,
meme.
so we get to the fight.
My point of bringing up the parallel between there is the cinematography in this movie is notably so much better than the first two. They've got a bigger budget.
For sure.
They know what they're doing. And so I like the parallel of the training scenes between Rocky and between Clubber Lang, and you just kind of see very obviously...
You know who's going to win this fight.
You know who's going to win this fight. And it's just, I like that. And I think it's a big step up from the first two movies.
Yeah, the whole story I thought was great.
So we get an intro with Apollo Creed, who's doing some commentary on the fight, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Mr. D had no reason to be crappy with Apollo.
Yeah,
he
he
was
just called him some
disrespectful
has-been.
right off.
Yeah.
Which I think is not cool. Like, I was with him when he was like, I want my shot.
It's like he's the bad guy.
Well, he's just a jerk.
What?
He's just a jerk in real life, and that's what they want you to like. Not Mr. T. I'm just saying
the character.
the character was supposed to just be just one of those people. There are people you meet; they're just jerks, and they enjoy getting a rise out of people.
I like finding the relatable things about the villains because I think there's a reason that they do what they're doing. It may not be a good reason, but it's relatable and I can see where they're coming from. I could see where he was coming from with the I just want a shot, but right out of the gate, being rude to Apollo, like, you know, he's got some kind of chip on his shoulder and he's taking it out on everybody. And I gotta, like, for me, I'm watching this and I'm like, listen, everybody else has got their own struggles too, buddy. Like, you just come in here thinking you're the one with the most struggles, and it's not a contest.
Now, I will say this, and I'm not saying it's true with his character, but I remember, like, when I played sports, and I had a chip on my shoulder, and I saw the other team as the enemy when I'm playing them. Now, I might be civil otherwise, but we're in the middle of a game and someone tries to come up to half court and talk to me during a timeout or something. I'm probably not going to be cordial.
But you're not doing that to the ref.
No. I'm not doing that to the
really
ref.
Doing it to the other coaches
but I'm also
either,
making sure when the ref's not looking, my elbows get pretty sharp.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hurt somebody, but I would make him know that I was there. And I could see that part of it, and he could have been psychologically, because if you remember the first time, he's shoving reporters and getting mad, and he shoves the manager. But in the second time, when they jumping into the rematch, he's talking to the reporters right before the match, and he's
Yeah.
not doing the same thing. And it might have been just this: I'm going to kill anything in my sight until I get that title.
Yeah, he psyched himself up, and then he was like, "Oh, I've got this."
Yes. Now I will say back to this. I mentioned briefly the hero's journey, and you had the hero ordinary world, and then all this stuff there. But there's a shapeshifter character.
Mm-hmm.
And so Apollo went from the antagonist in Rocky 2 to, at this point, he becomes his ally. Says, give everybody an early Christmas gift and knock this chump out.
Knock him out, yeah.
And
Rocky's kind of like, oh, we're kind of buddies now? Is that what's happening here?
he's just like, because Rocky still had an immense amount of respect.
Oh, yeah.
And it just oozed out of him when he saw Apollo. And Apollo had that respect for him, too.
This is definitely not a never meet your heroes connection,
No,
I think. I think Apollo lived up to all of Rocky's like admiration and respect for him.
Yeah.
Because you saw that in Rocky 1, like you saw he had that admiration and respect for Apollo, and even when they were trash talking, it was still kind of there.
Well, he never really trash talked Apollo, if you remember. Like they said, you got anything to say about the champ? Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
And when he got that brutal, like it was like you have Mickey getting hit, and then which is really stupid because why wasn't he rushed to the ER?
Right,
He's
wouldn't
sitting there,
go.
and
Why are we giving him a choice?
Adrian, watch him, take care of him. And she's like,
Which
Adrian Balboa, MD.
Right.
like when he gets there, the first thing that they say is when Rocky walks in there, they say, "Sir, he needs to go to the hospital immediately," and then proceed to not take him to the hospital until he's dead.
That's what I would have fast forwarded that part. That really irritated me.
Also, before he dies, one of the things that he talks about before the actual fight happens is he's telling Rocky that one of the big things that he's got to do is let Clubber Lang wear him out. Is one of the things that he tells him to do, which is something that comes into play later on when that is not Apollo Creed's strategy going into it.
Yeah.
So even when Mickey's about to like pass away, he gives Rocky that piece of advice, which actually gets him the win later on, which I thought was cool.
That happens a lot in movies. Like if you ever seen the movie Signs with Mel Gibson and his
spoiler alert, maybe because
spoiler alert
this.
from a movie.
Oh,
you've never seen this? Well, I'm going to say. First of all, there's Vid Angel.
You watch this movie. This is going to be the most hilarious thing There's a part in that movie that I love, especially because
I'm insane with anger.
I like how I hear this literally all the time, but this is why it annoys me is because I haven't seen it, but every one of my siblings has. They didn't watch it with Vid Angel. They watched it with you, and you missed all the cuss words.
Oh, that's right. I did mute all the cuss words.
No,
You're
you missed all the cuss words. That's what they said. Yes, they said.
You were too busy laughing.
Yes. So I never understood.
I muted the cuss words. I
never
Insane with Anger I
understood.
played.
They watched it when they were so
Gabby,
young.
yes, but they all had nightmares too after it, and that was one of the reasons Gabby was
10
like
Cloverfield Lane.
11 years old.
Oh my gosh, that one is...
That's intense. I haven't seen that either
that?
because I wasn't allowed
Alexis
to after they
said that
watched
one
it.
was scary too, so...
That one is super creepy. Like, I mean, I don't have nightmares about it, but I
never seen
get
it.
creeped.
Yes.
But that's J.J. Abrams.
I spoiled that movie.
I do like J.J. Abrams.
I did spoil that movie for everybody, even though I've never seen it. They all would get
spoil
mad
it for me,
because
please.
I could watch a movie.
I don't want you to spoil it for Joe.
I'm not spoiling anything.
Okay.
I said I could watch a movie, and probably, I'm not joking, probably 90% of the time I can tell you what's going to happen within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like plot twists and everything, I used to think it was fair game because I've never seen it, and I found out that my family didn't share that viewpoint.
Yeah. Papal does that to us a lot, and it's really annoying. But it's not because he's anticipating the hero's journey. It's because he's seen it already, and we haven't seen it, or we were waiting to watch it together, and then he walks out and just spoils it.
Okay, back to
Signs.
Signs.
So back to Signs. There is the same thing where something that happened earlier to somebody was used later on in the end of the movie to help them win a battle. and that's all I will give you.
Yeah.
Because it's
for
the
sure.
same thing you mentioned on that callback to Mickey's advice was what caused him to get that.
Get the win in the end.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't love how they fought. I didn't love how they even had the fight with Mickey being having a heart attack. I feel is that accurate?
Yeah,
would that
he
happen?
would.
I don't think that would have happened.
No, because if there was a heart attack, first of all, there would be a stinking ambulance there. And people.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's a fight where they're literally, even back then, there were medical personnel there. And why they just had him on the table and it showed them like on the breather and all that, then take
They
it
also
off.
said initiate CPR. I
Yeah.
noticed that. Why would
But
you
he's
do that for
talking-
a heart attack?
And
that
he's
doesn't make
talking
sense.
to him like he's not dead. So
Yeah, because he's not dead yet. So why would they initiate CPR? And then Rocky
Yeah.
walks in there and they talk to him. I
Yes.
feel like they just wrote up a script with some medical terms and said, "Okay, say this
They
stuff."
did not have
to
an EMT,
Yeah.
EMS, MD, any
Yeah.
initial RN on site for consultation for that movie.
Yeah,
is what I'm thinking.
if your manager had a heart attack, though, I don't think he would have went out.
I wouldn't have. And I think here's the really important
He
thing.
even brought that up.
He would have lost the fight anyway.
Yeah,
But this is the thing about sports or just really anything. There is a mental component to it.
Yes.
And it's really hard to filter all of that stuff out.
well, actually, I say that the mental component of that moment helped him for about 1 minute in the fight. Like he came out with a vengeance and was just swatting and swatting and swatting.
With no strategy, though.
No,
'Cause that's not the
but I'm
strategy
saying
they talked about.
that raw energy and anger and
it
frustration.
didn't help the mental. It might have helped the physical, but
Well,
it did
the
not
mental
help
focus
the
to
mental.
start out with, he was going after him in a way that Clubber didn't expect, and Clubber's the one who caused the heart attack. So it was a lot of
I wouldn't say focus because it was more like I'm angry. Rah!
Yeah, he
And
took
then,
his
oh,
anger
wow,
out,
that
and he
hurts.
burnt out fast.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
Because he
hits really
wasn't-
hard is what he said.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But the poor training and his head not being in it to begin with, combined with the fact that Mickey's really like this is not just my trainer's not feeling well; it's his heart.
Right.
So this is worrisome, even though he's not dead yet.
yeah.
It's not good. There's reason to be worried. I feel like he wouldn't have gone out there,
Yeah.
but doesn't matter because in the movie he does. They get back, Mickey dies.
Mickey
Yeah.
dies.
But that fight was devastating, and
He got knocked out in the second round, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't
Okay.
have the heart to tell Mickey.
Which I get that.
I get that, yeah,
So-
but I think that's
yeah, but
that's
it's
part of a sad scene.
considered a knockout if you don't get up on the 10 count.
right.
You don't have to actually lose consciousness.
No, you have to get
Yeah.
it's a 10 count before
That's
you get up.
that's a
You
knockout.
can even get up and still be loopy, and they'll keep counting.
Yeah, as long as you say I'm okay to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're cognitive and you're responsive in any sort
You're
of
in.
manner inside of the 10 count and you're on both feet, then they let the fight continue.
Okay.
And I don't know if this was in the 80s when the TKO came out, but if you get knocked down 3 times in one round, that's a technical knockout too.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah.
if you don't get up on
Which
10.
he didn't get knocked out
Yeah.
3 times, but
He almost did in
He
one of the
almost
movies.
did. So Apollo Creed finds Rocky. Am I skipping too far ahead? Because I have a lot of Apollo
Well-
stuff.
Yeah.
you're skipping a little bit far ahead.
Yeah, you are. Well,
One,
Blah, blah, blah.
One-
There's a funeral. We love Mickey.
Well,
so you just
there's a
blah
couple-
blah that raw emotion and the wailing that I mock. I play
Yeah.
that just as a mockery.
I was
the way he
really
wails.
annoyed.
the crying that Sylvester Stallone
Yes.
does kind of plays the same part as, like you said, with the Thunderlips thing. You said it kind of makes you smile in a dark moment. So this is crying.
Aw.
He's trying to say "speak to me," but he's going "Bip, bip, 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 bip," and
Poor
you just
guy.
can't really.
Yeah.
Although it was, and you think, well, that was just a bad acting moment, but if you watch the end of First Blood, it's the same exact thing he did there. So that's we know how Sylvester Stallone would be in a tragic moment, I guess.
But also, Morgan Freeman auditioned for Clubber Lang's trainer.
Oh, wow.
I did hear that. Mm-hmm. I would have been like, dude, that's Morgan Freeman. I would have loved that. But
Yeah, I would have loved that too.
I don't know what I'm
but
missing
they
with
probably
that, so.
probably didn't want to pay him Morgan Freeman amount of money for that
He
small
wasn't
role.
Morgan Freeman yet, though.
Yeah, was it Morgan Freeman money?
Because he
time?
wasn't.
It
He was on the
1982.
So he was on the Electric Company, not around that time. He may have been in a few movies here and there, but he was on a kids show until like the early 80s. So he was just getting started on becoming a name. He might have had more voiceovers than acting at that point too, but pretty sure he wasn't in a lot of big movies back then.
He was in one episode of The Twilight Zone.
Well, just a little fun fact there that Morgan Freeman auditioned for Clubber Lang's trainer. But then, I know Dad would always comment on this. Well, not always comment on it, but when it came to his funeral, you noticed that he was Jewish.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about him being Jewish in the first 2 movies? Mickey?
I don't think I noticed. I might have noticed.
So it was...
But that's great because Rocky's Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always love that people can find common ground with different religions.
Well, actually, he wasn't really... He
didn't wear a yarmulke or anything.
No, he wasn't technically written as Jewish, but when it came to his funeral, they made him Jewish to pay homage to Jewish trainers, because apparently back in the time that Mickey would have been a fighter, most of the trainers, it was predominantly Jewish people that were really big in boxing for trainers. So they did that to pay homage to boxing trainers of Mickey's time. So they were just like, what if we made him Jewish?
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed that, but I do think it's cool.
And they're speaking Hebrew before they put him in the...
I was probably making notes about how annoyed I was that they fought even though he was dying and all that stuff.
But then after this, we see him he gets angry, and he gets angry with himself, Rocky.
Yes.
This is
and
when he's driving around.
A motorcycle downstairs with no helmet.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he
has
the helmet at the statue.
Oh, that's it. He throws the helmet.
the helmet at the statue.
And I'm like, you're a boxer, dude. You should be protecting your head a little bit more, but okay.
Well, that's never been his strong suit.
Never.
Mm-hmm. But then this little late-night drive where he goes to be angry and walk around, he ends up at the gym, at his old gym. And in walks Apollo Creed with the offer.
That was so awesome.
Yeah, I think it was great. And that always really psyched me up when I watched it, is seeing Apollo walk in there, because you're not thinking about Apollo Creed at this point at all.
Nope.
Right.
You're not even really kind of seeing that he's going to be a big role in this movie.
You don't even expect him to show up again. Really.
Well, as soon as he says, "Don't hit it sideways, hit it straight," and it's like,
you're like,
he's already
what?
training him. It's
Yeah.
like, what is happening here?
And then he walks in, and I always thought it was cool when he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "You hear that, Rock? It's quiet. Being retired, it's too quiet." And so then it's Apollo gets something out of it too, because he gets to kind of hop back on the saddle a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
And he owes him a favor.
Yeah.
The
whole movie, you get the callback to that favor. The whole movie.
Paulie is an unlikable character, but I'm very glad he went to L.A. with them.
Yeah.
I like, when Paulie first gets there too, he's like, I don't like these people, and he doesn't want to be there. He thinks he's too good, and then he goes in there and he's like, I don't like these people, and then Rocky's
That's my favorite line.
Well, maybe they don't like you
maybe
neither.
They don't
and he's
like
like,
you. Yeah, my favorite
what did I do to them?
And then he goes, and they call me punchy.
Yeah.
Yep. And then just all that, like he's laying down, and then you hear people like decent people trying to sleep here.
And this is really why I thought it was so important to watch the first 2 Rockies before you watch this one. Because number one, it's kind of partially because I think Rocky 3 is a very good movie, but it's also part of the fact that it's a better movie when you're comparing it to
1 and 2. Yeah.
And the impact of Apollo, of all people.
Yeah. That's why I wanted you to watch the first 2, is because
just as much kind of thing.
Yeah, it's because it's so much more significant that Apollo. If you go and you watch Rocky 3, it's a good movie, but Apollo training Rocky does not mean nearly as much as if you're watching Rocky 1 and you're watching Rocky 2 and then you go to Rocky 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
and now
'cause-
he's training him, and that's really cool.
Yeah, you're only getting little pieces. You know that he was a former champion, and you tell him to knock him out, and he's sitting there, and he's like, "Do you really think the champ hits that hard?" He goes, "That's why I'm sitting here with you." And then,
I
that's the
loved that
only-
line. Yeah, that was fun too. I forgot about that one.
Yep. So then, they're in L.A., and the big thing is calling back. They call back to that being knocked out like that. I've been in, like as a teenager, I was in a lot of fights. And hardly any of them ever affected me except for the one time I got jumped by 4 people. And when I got on the ground, someone kicked me, and they kicked my head straight into the concrete. And that's the only time I've ever been knocked out. But I remember after that, I was faces all beat up and that, I started walking around, and you do the slightest thing to me, like I would swing.
Yeah.
It does something to you mentally when you get knocked out like that. And I saw that in there. I'm like, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So
I like that it's the whole, like, this is the nitty gritty kind of, you're not in your posh mansion now.
Yep.
Yes.
We're going to get back to the basics, get back to work, start at the beginning.
Yeah,
And I love that Apollo's team supported Apollo and by extension supported Rocky, right?
Well,
They're
yeah.
helping Apollo train Rocky.
And you also see that Apollo was also, like in the first 2 movies, all you see is champion Apollo,
Yeah.
super rich on the
Got
like
his
on a
own
pedestal. Gym. Yeah, got his own gym.
He's like a parfait. Everybody
then-
loves parfait. He's
and
got
then-
layers.
It gives him more depth.
Yes.
Now you see where he comes from.
Yeah, you got a little piece of that, like in Rocky 1, where he's doing his big character, and he's in or Rocky 2, he's in a wheelchair, and he's like, let's finish this right now, and he's going on there. And then later on, Rocky rolls up there, and he's like, Apollo's laying in bed, hey, did I get your best? He's like, yeah. You kind of see a little glimpse of the real Apollo right there. But yeah, that seeing him in there is a callback to the Rocky 2. If I don't know if you remember this, but he was talking to Mickey in Rocky 2, and Mickey slaps him and says, what do you think the champ would do to you? He'd hurt you permanently. And he says, well, can I at least come work at the gym? He's like, I got to be around it. And that was a gym that was sweaty and stinky and just one of those, like, I know I miss when I walk into a basketball court and gym's got a certain smell, a certain sound. It brings me back to all those days I played basketball for hours on end because I was a gym rat growing up. It's a similar thing for him. I'm guessing that triggered that, bringing him back there. And same thing for Apollo. So
I like that Apollo, you can tell he believes in Rocky enough to fly to Philadelphia and say, I want to train you, to bring him back to California, no matter who footed the bill for that, and to introduce him to his home turf and open himself up to be, because honestly, that's him opening himself up to Rocky, right? And he believes in Rocky enough that he wants to push him.
Yeah, and I think Duke is the name of his trainer, is my favorite trainer out of all. I like him way better than Mickey. And then Mickey was likable in his own way, but I love Duke. He was just, and all the Rockies after that.
But also, I like Duke's because he can yell, and when he yells, sometimes there's like his eyes are like tearing up. But when he yells, I like that because as opposed to when Mickey yells, every time Mickey yells, you're like, oh, careful, buddy, you're gonna break.
Yeah.
With Apollo training Rocky, I really appreciate that it's not just, okay, you see Apollo training Rocky and then he goes to the fight and he wins the fight. I like how you can see Apollo style in Rocky now because he goes from this big, clunky, like uncoordinated, no footwork at all, just big swinger fighter to like smooth, and you see that progress through the training montage, and then when you get to the fight, it actually sticks. You have
him at first just not. It's like similar to Rocky 2, where he's training, and as soon as he starts getting hit in the head, he's flashing back that mental thing I was talking about, and he just stops, and then it takes Adrian to get him going this time again.
One of the things I loved out of that chat, and I'm paraphrasing, but she confronts him, so I appreciate that. She just lays it out there for him. And then she makes the comment, and in some way she basically says, I can't want it for you. It's not enough for me to believe in you. You have to believe in you. Yep. And I think that's so important because I can see the people around me at work and their personal lives and whatever, and I want things for them. I want the best for them, whatever I think is the best, but I want what they think is the best too, but it doesn't really mean anything. I can support them and love them, but it really means it if they believe in themselves enough to reach out and grab it.
That is very transferable in life to reality.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of my own wife. I was almost 40 years old when I went back to college, and I started doing that, and it inspired my wife, but she's never a good student, she said, and she really doubted whether she could do it. And I knew my wife's got hidden depths like crazy. I knew she could do it. And so I encouraged her and kind of kept, when she went through a lot of ups and downs, like the school she went to in high school didn't have records, which I went through something similar. The school I attended, the building burned down and my records with it, but I had my transcripts that I used to get into the Army, and IUSB took that. Well, she didn't have that, so she had to go back and get a GED, even though she graduated high school, and she's 38, I think, at the time. And then she goes through that, and she goes to this knockoff college that turned out to be a scam for a half a year, and then she ended up going to 3 different colleges, but she finished, and she got a bachelor's degree when she didn't even think she could do it. And it took a lot of, saying you can do this and overcoming that. I saw that play out in real life. So make that very long story short.
It's very life relevant.
Yes, that happens. And there are times where you need someone that cares about you and has your best interest at heart to give you a push to do something that you have the very big risk of not doing best and looking less than stellar.
Yeah. My favorite thing about this next training montage, there's 2 favorite things actually. Apollo Creed's crop top, loving that. Oh, there's 3 things. Love that. I love that Apollo is physically training with Rocky. Yeah. Like he's doing the stuff with him, and I think that that's super encouraging because you don't feel like you're, I don't know how Rocky feels, but it's encouraging to me because it looks like Rocky doesn't have to feel alone because he has somebody in there with him to some extent. So it's like an extra support. And the third thing that I like is I like that they watch, and I'm going to call it game tape because that's the lingo that I'm familiar with, but I like that they watch that because that makes it real. They're studying their opponent and you're seeing them study the opponent. So I buy in a lot more that this is a boxing movie. Even though I don't know anything about boxing. I mean,
well, they start breaking. Duke breaks it, and man, that clubber's strong. And then Apollo's like, I figure the pace we got set, you can last maybe 6-7 rounds. So they're already talking like they're going for a knockout on this guy. And I don't know if Apollo's strategy would have worked if Rocky stuck to it to the letter or not. But man, by the end of that training montage, you were like, this is going to be pretty cool. And I would say also that the fight more than delivered after that great training montage.
The fight was way better than the other fights that I've seen, like just from the action standpoint. Oh, wait a second. Better than the other Rocky fights I've seen, just to make sure you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the action was a lot better than that. It was filmed better. The hits were better. It was just better.
That was my favorite part, probably, is when he came out and just was like drilling him in the face, and Clubber Lang, Mr. T there, didn't get a single shot. And just the shock of him getting hit in the face with all those straight shots and him missing. It was amazing.
And Rocky, I'm sorry, we're skipping way ahead to the final fight.
Sorry.
Go ahead with your other notes.
So I have on there when you mentioned that Apollo was talking with the pace that we're setting, we could last like 6 or 7 rounds. Their idea is to put him away early, which obviously he deviates that, and he goes with Mickey's strategy for the first fight.
Yes.
But I also wrote down that when you're watching him train, before he has this whole pep talk with his wife, when you're watching him train, you see that he's still working hard, but he's not mentally in it whatsoever. Yeah. And one of the things that hyped me up when I was a kid is when they're sparring, and Apollo's just killing him. He's like, what is wrong with you, man? And then Rocky just goes, tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow. And then Apollo just goes, there is no tomorrow. And then he goes over to the mirror. He's like, there is no tomorrow. And it's just echoing in his head.
Yes.
That really got to me when I was a kid. And then I think that the scene on the beach where he's talking with his wife, in my opinion, I think that's probably like the best dialogue in all of the Rocky movies. I really like that dialogue. And I think that not only his wife, what she's saying really gets to him, but I also think it's just the fact that it's Adrian. Because, yes, Adrian is what makes him tick, like we've talked about. But also, she is not the kind of person to say something like that.
Yeah,
she's
she's
so
saying something
mild-mannered.
it's
she's
important.
Not confrontational, but she knows that he can do it. She believes in him. She tells him everything that he needs to hear to actually, flip the switch and get it back on. Rocky talks about how he's afraid, and I really like how she said, just put everything that you've got into it. Because if you train your hardest and you go in there with everything that you got and you lose, that doesn't matter because I know that you'll have no excuses and you can at least live with that.
Yes.
I know you can live with that. If you lose and you've got no excuses, she said, I know you can live with that.
Yep.
And so I that line got some significance for me. I thought that was pretty cool. Hearing Adrian, of all people, deliver some pretty powerful lines to Rocky when she's so quiet and reserved, not at all confrontational.
Yeah, that I agree. That scene was just a full. It's very rare to get an entire paradigm shift from one conversation in a movie and the audience buy it. And boy, that was one of those where it worked.
You do buy it, yeah, for sure.
And I know I call back a lot to the coaching part of things, but you've been in the trenches with me. How many times do we prepare? And my goal is for them to do their best, win or lose if you're doing your best. And we ended up getting on the right side of the win-loss column more often than not, way more often than not. But it was preparing them to – it's not them against the other team as much as it's them. Are they them the best version of themselves?
Yeah. Are they going to be able to be happy with what they put forth?
Leave it all out on the court is what we kept saying there. Yep. And then if you do that, then you can find wins even inside a loss.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where she was drawing from. And that was really good because it's so true in life.
Then from there, we've got the training montage, which I love. I think it's the best training montage of the Rocky movies. Rocky IV is right there with it. I really like the training montage because, like I said before, I like how you can see him just completely shift styles of fighting. Yep. He does not look like the same fighter. He really doesn't look like the same guy. Yeah. Because he's so cut, he's so trim, he's so cleaned up, and he's so quick and fast. It's a completely different Rocky that you're seeing. And I like that you can kind of see that through the montages. You see him not really catching on to it at first, and then as he goes on, it's smoother and it's quicker.
You see him beat Apollo running in the sand. Yep. He wins the race.
Which Apollo Creed was a wide receiver in the NFL, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's racing against a world-class athlete who was very noticeably faster than him. And then he gets and it's believable how much he transforms. It's actually believable because if that had been the Sylvester Stallone from Rocky II, you're like, nah, come on.
Yeah.
No, and they did so good because, you see him progress in so many different areas. You see him get smoother on the mats. You see him swimming better. You see him running faster.
You see him do that footwork. I always notice that. That always stood out to me is when they're doing the footwork, like the kind of like shadow boxing in the mirror. You see Apollo just really impressively smooth.
Was the word lithe? Is that the right word I'm thinking of? On your feet? Let me look it up. But keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's impressive that Carl Weathers is doing that because Carl Weathers isn't a boxer, so he had to learn that, and he looks really good when he does that. And Rocky just looks so bad when he does it, and Paulie even comments, he's like, he's not about the footwork. He's a heavy hitter. That's what he is.
Paulie is the worst because he doesn't even all of these people are behind Rocky. They're encouraging him to grow. And Paulie's like, nah, he can't do that.
Yeah.
He can't do that.
Can he swim with a name like Rock?
Which was a funny line, but also super
Yes.
unsupportive,
Well,
Paulie. Thank you.
Yeah, but then
Rocky
once,
gave you a job. Come on now.
Yeah, well, that's Paulie being Paulie.
I
But
know, which is why he's my
when
least
you
favorite
see
character.
when you see the transformation and the better training and the improvement in swimming, you also see that he's not so focused and intense and like he one of the swimming scenes he jumps up and grabs Paulie and pulls him into the pool. He's still loose.
He sort of finds a joy in it.
Yes,
again.
he's loose and he's just enjoying. He's living in the moment and he's no longer afraid.
Yeah.
And he's just giving it his all and he's enjoying the journey, which
Agreed.
is something I
Try to impart on people.
I try to tell people that if I'm in a position of mentoring, do not just go for the mountaintops, but enjoy the journey to the mountaintops.
Yeah.
And if you're in a valley, find the pearls of wisdom you can while you're going through the hard times. It feels like a piece of sand, but there's a pearl somewhere, and then enjoy the journey. Yep. And definitely throwing Paulie into a pool is enjoying the journey.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Better
Well-
points if you can't swim.
While he's eating, I believe. I think he's
Yeah.
eating
Oh,
something.
ew.
It was hilarious. And he grabs him. He's wearing a wife beater, and he grabs him and just pulls him in or something like that. It was funny.
So then, after this training montage, you see the growth there, and then you go to the locker room, basically, where you see now Rocky is not really doing the interviews this time. Everybody cares about
Yep.
Clubber Lang. All their focus is on him. He's got all the people in there, and he's actually talking to them this time. He's actually
Yep.
he's actually doing the press or whatever you want to call it, and Rocky's in there, and I just think Apollo is such a great trainer. I think I think as well as being a very good coach, he's also just a hype guy.
When he gave him his colors, the
Yeah.
trunks.
He's
man.
really good
That
hype
was
man,
really fun, yeah.
But he's like rubbing him down. He's like, "You're the best. You're the best. You could do this." I think he's good at that.
Isn't that? I mean, they did that for Apollo in the
Yeah.
first movie.
Duke
Like they
did.
were
Yeah.
doing. He was
Duke
doing the
did
same
that.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you see Apollo. I just think he's a really good trainer, and he's a good hype man too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big significance of Apollo giving him his colors, his shorts from their first match together, the American flag. So you've got that. You've got the locker room scene right before the fight, where, as opposed to the first fight when Rocky was getting all the press and Mr. T turned it all away, now Rocky's not really getting anything, and Mr. T's getting all of it.
Yep.
And he's not turning it away this time. He's actually...
Yep. Well, that's where I
Well,
was
he's
saying.
somebody now, right? Quote somebody. He's the
Well,
champ
that's
now.
what I was saying from earlier, where he is just yelling at everybody. I work, I train alone and all that, but then he's got trainers around him, and he, like the first time he would get called Apollo Creed a has-been, get out of my corner. He was
Yeah.
just nothing there. This time he's talking about, even in that interview, he's already softer. He said, "I don't hate Balboa, but I pity the fool." And
Yeah.
that wasn't where he's like, "I pity the fool." Like later, he was kind of calm saying that. And then they're asking him for a prediction right before the match. He just looks in there and goes, "Pain." Like he just turned it back on again.
Yeah. Quick PSA. Be careful training alone. You could injure yourself and not have anybody to call for help. So just throwing that out there.
She knows this from her years of weight training.
I'm just
She's
saying
jacked
it's
for
not
our-
super smart to be pumping iron and not have anybody there to spot you, or at least in the same building. And anytime you see him at the beginning, nobody's with him.
Yeah. He's out running a lot of that time and doing wall pull-ups. So at least there's not weight coming down on
Yeah,
him.
okay, and that's fine. But I'm just saying,
You even know the lingo, pumping iron.
pumping iron.
Well, we just get into the fight. So
Okay.
first round.
Yes, also, fun fact about this movie, it is the only Rocky movie where every round is filmed end to end, from beginning to end, no cuts.
Yep.
You see every round, and you see every second of every round.
Yeah, like Rocky 2, you fast forwarded through almost the entire fight just by showing the ring girls putting up a number.
Fun fact about this movie: Rocky still didn't protect his face.
No, that was his strategy. Although the first round, I don't believe Clubber Lang got a single shot in.
I don't think he did either.
And he was just nailing him. So I think Apollo's strategy would have worked too. But then I think that's the first time you ever seen Rocky taunt somebody.
I was going to say that, yeah. And because he really starts laying it in there.
Yeah.
And then playing with his mohawk.
Which I think was smart, because this is Clubber Lang, who is like the angriest guy ever for really no apparent reason, but he's so angry all the time, and then he's taunting him, which is just going to make him so angry. And I also thought it was funny how he can take the hit so well that he's taunting him right after he got knocked down. He gets up from getting knocked down and then starts taunting him.
Because that's where he almost had a TKO. He knocked him down twice, and then he kind of stumbled and didn't go down on a third one.
Yeah. But we know that's Rocky's strength, right? He can take a hit and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then that does come into play in later Rocky movies, though. It's not without a cost. But in that movie, man, he just starts drumming. Then he does let him just hit him, and he's like, and he starts that, I ain't the one breathing heavy. And you understand what he's doing at that point. And then he starts to let him just hit him like the old Rocky. But then after he starts to get winded, he's like, come on, the whole world's watching, knock me out. And then he starts putting those arms up Muhammad Ali style, the rope-a-dope, and and then goes back to just the straight punching and just nailing him. It was a thing of beauty to me.
And he also, he lets him land the punches, and then not only is he blocking, then after he lands a few punches and he's swinging really hard, then he starts ducking, he starts dodging, and then he's just expending all this extra energy.
Because they say it takes more energy to swing and miss.
Yeah, it does.
Do they say that in this movie, or is that just stuff I've heard elsewhere?
Think it's just the truth.
Knowledge.
When you swing, when you don't hit anything, you do the full extension, you expend more energy. Yeah.
Just like I'm pretty sure, because I don't know, it's something with like kinetic energy or something like that, the science behind it, but it's like the same idea with a bow and arrow. It does a lot more damage on the bow and arrow if you fire it without an actual arrow. It hurts the bow and arrow because there's not a transfer of kinetic energy or something like that. But it takes a lot more out of you to miss, and that's something that you see a lot of Rocky doing in this fight, which
I could get behind that. Yep,
is much better choreographed than Rocky 1 and Rocky 2.
Yeah.
And I just love Mr. T as the antagonist. Clubber Lang's a very good antagonist, and he doesn't even have to, like, he's not a character with tons of depth. He's not a character that you're really looking to understand, but he's just mean.
I mean, the thing that I liked about him was he said, the whole concept of, I want a shot, you're not giving anybody else a shot, and I related to that because I feel like that was Rocky kind of getting his shot early on, right? Like, he had that opportunity. He was given that opportunity by Apollo, but he wasn't going to give it to Clubber Lang. And so that's the only, like, super redeeming thing I thought of.
Rocky didn't earn his shot.
No, he was just given.
Yeah, and then Clubber Lang worked his way up to number one contender. He was the number one contender.
And I think there's something about that let me restart. I think there's something about that for keeping the sport, like, just, is it grace, there's honor, there's integrity in giving somebody else an opportunity that you were given instead of holding on to it in a way.
But I didn't see him retiring as holding on to anything.
I agree with that.
Well, that's not how
before
Clubber Lang
he
is
retired, he wasn't giving Clubber Lang the opportunity, but he didn't know he wasn't necessarily either, right?
Yeah.
No.
Because Mickey was probably blocking that,
You seen Mickey at the fight looking at Clubber Lang, and he's, you hear that, old man? And I'm coming after him, and he's like just looking at him, and he doesn't mention him to Rocky.
Right.
And
I think he also says, you're never going to get a shot at this title. Like,
yeah. He's really trying to keep him
no
from
shot.
that.
And that's the finals. Like that.
And that's the end of it, or something like that. But anyways, they are in the last fight. much better choreography. You see the strategy play out very well.
Yeah.
And then Rocky ends out coming up on top. He knocks Clubber Lang out. I think it's the first time he knocks him down, but it's totally...
Yep.
If it came to a draw, Rocky wins the fight easily. He got the better hits. He had the best of the rounds.
I mean, the second round, I would say it would be a toss-up because the whole first half of that, he's letting Clubber Lang land shots. So those
but if it's a draw, you look at all the rounds.
There's
Rocky wins, like he was just...
Is it 2 or 3?
I think there was more than 2.
Yeah,
it was more than 2 because
3.
in the second round is when he was taunting him.
Yeah, because he got knocked out in the second round.
So, are we ready to win the fight? Because we see him win the fight, and every other movie, which obviously just 1 and 2, end basically right there.
Yeah.
But this movie doesn't end at the end of the fight.
I do want to say that on there, I like the fact that they teased it with him knocking him down. He almost went down too, like Rocky too.
Oh, yeah.
And then he stumbled and stayed up. I'm like, good, because that irritated me.
Yeah. When he fall down too, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I do want to say, in a callback to the Rocky 2 episode, this is the fight where he jumps up. Do you remember when we were talking about that? And I said at the end of the fight, and he jumps up and he comes down on his knees. This is Rocky 3, not Rocky 2. So I was wrong.
Thank you.
But, so anyways,
We've got it on the record now.
Yes. We see Rocky win the fight. You see his strategy work. And you also see his new training work out very well. I'm pretty sure the commenters say that he looks like Apollo Creed when he's fighting out there. He's got the Apollo Creed jab.
Yeah, and they even said he looked like a middleweight. He was so trimmed down.
Mm-hmm. They said he was like 20 pounds lighter or something.
Yeah.
But, so he gets out there, he wins the fight, and then the whole movie, they're teasing this little favor that's being owed. Also, we didn't say anything about the Eye of the Tiger when that get mentioned every 40 seconds. They say something about the Eye of the Tiger.
During the training,
Yeah, during the training. I have that in my notes, is that Apollo just keeps saying Eye of the Tiger. And
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So,
for 20 minutes.
Well, if you take like 8 shots in 20 minutes, you're going to feel it.
And how would you know?
Well,
I've watched other movies.
This is a pretty public place to come forward about my alcoholism, but
the 18-year-old there, yeah.
But so we're at the end of the fight, and then the favor that Apollo asked Rocky for to train him. Apollo's been teasing this favor the whole movie, and then we finally get to see him cash it in, which is a exhibition. Just like a little secret exhibition fight between the two of them.
No cameras, no spectators.
Mm-hmm. Just a little tiebreaker.
Which I don't know how rough it got since they were wearing something to protect their private area, but they weren't really
protecting their heads.
No,
they didn't wear the helmet gear.
They did wear the headgear.
Yeah, they did.
At the end.
Yeah, at the end they wore the headgear. They had mouthpiece.
Yes.
They had
but the protection down there. I'm like, okay, this is gonna get rough.
Hey, there's no ref. All the rabbit punches are good.
Ring
kidney
the bell.
punches.
Yeah. Ding ding.
Yeah, ring the bell.
No.
Ding,
all right.
Ding.
Ding ding.
I love that. Yeah.
I like you fight. He's like, how are you going to do it? You taught me everything. No, he goes, almost everything. Remember, you fight great, but I'm a great fighter.
That was a fun line too.
And I like how he just calls him Stallion the whole movie because I always love that because in the first movie, the whole reason that Rocky Balboa got picked is because Apollo Creed is like this guy who's all big on showmanship, and Rocky's name was the Italian Stallion. He's like, I like that. Italian Stallion.
Sounds like a monster movie.
Yeah, so then the whole series, he calls him Stallion all the time.
Yeah.
So, because he went by the Italian Stallion, so I think that's cool that he just calls him Stallion all the time. But
which is knowing his character, that's such a weird name because it sounds like something macho and egotistical. The Italian Stallion, but that's not his personality at all.
Yeah. So you got the end fight, Rocky versus Apollo, the tiebreaker, and then it cuts right after he rings the bell, and they both go for a swing at each other,
which is a great
freeze frame.
Yeah.
into the painting and the eye of the tiger. And I will say this, when I said that call back to myself out there, I remember going out and doing boxing out in the yard outside the old trailer I was in. I took, if you remember, we had tape recorders back then, and you record stuff like you're on the radio. You're like hoping the DJ doesn't talk at the beginning of the song so you could record it.
Yep.
Well, I recorded the best way to get the eye of the tiger wasn't right at the beginning. It was at the end where they had that freeze frame painting. They played the eye of the tiger there. And I recorded that on a little tape recorder, and I'd go out in the yard and I'd play that over and over as I'm doing the boxing moves and all that. Love that. And like everybody else, I wanted to see the rest of that painting. Like I wanted to see the rest of the fight.
Do they reference it in later movies?
Yes.
Creed. It doesn't.
No, they reference it in Rocky IV quite a bit. Remember, he comes
but they don't
back
tell you
with
who wins.
He's like, who gave? Where'd you get the black eyes? Or so, where'd you get the hat? I think he said a friend gave it to me. Where'd you get the black eye? Same friend.
Yeah, but I thought you meant, do they ever let you know who wins?
Oh, they never do.
They do. You learn in the first Creed, I think, or the second Creed. I don't know. I think it's the first Creed.
Yeah.
You don't remember who wins? I remember who
And
wins.
in Rocky IV, does it start with the Mr. T fight?
It starts with that of all the movies.
Yeah, but all the other movies ended right after that fight, so it makes sense that it starts there. But we got this little after scene of Apollo and Rocky, so
I
it
think
doesn't
that
start
is
there.
where it starts.
It starts with Rocky and Apollo?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts too.
Okay.
That's
I mean, I'm
Not
asking.
the
I'm
Mr.
curious.
T
That's what-
fight.
No, it starts with the end
Yes.
of the movie. It starts with Rocky and
They
Apollo.
don't give all the dialogue, but they show that, and then when they bing, and then it goes from there to him coming home from the fight.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know if you're ever going to watch Rocky IV, but you've already seen the first 5 minutes.
All right. I don't know if I'm gonna watch Rocky IV. Maybe.
Rocky IV is really close on my favorite. It's right down there. Now looking back on it, some of the stuff's a little cheesy and unrealistic, very unrealistic on some of the stuff. But it was a great watch.
The fighting gets better, I assume,
Oh, the fighting was amazing.
in 4.
Yes, and the villain was this was back when we were against Russia. You know, the Cold War was in full swing, and so the villain was this giant Russian. And
Dolph Lundgren,
yep.
if you know who that is.
Now, in all the Rocky movies, his height and his weight is very inflated because Hulk Hogan. They say
They
he
say
was,
he's almost 7 foot.
yeah, and he's actually when he was tallest, he was 6'7".
Yeah.
He's 6'4"
He's about
now.
6'3", 6'4", because of all the injuries to his back and stuff from wrestling.
Yeah. So Apollo Creed is in 4?
Yes.
That's all we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got a significant part.
Yeah,
in
he's
4.
got a very significant part in 4.
How much is he in 4?
Enough.
Like in
Yeah.
a 2-hour movie, he's in an hour and 30 minutes?
How much is
Enough.
he physically in it, or how much is he in it and talked about in it? And
Yeah.
I'm pretty
referenced
he
to
dies in it,
callbacks.
right? They kill him?
I don't know. Did they?
I don't know, but I'm not going to watch it if he's not
Did they-
in it
Carl Weathers is dead. If
more
that's what
than
you're
he's
asking.
not.
He is. He's in it enough to really make the movie move forward.
Okay, because I think he's my favorite character.
Yeah. In that, well, in there you get more of Duke too. And just really, like, if you like the training montages, it's got a lot of cool ones. Like, it's different than the other ones, the way he trains.
Dang it.
It's a good training montage. You could watch the training montage if you never want to watch the movie.
Yeah.
It's a good.
I'm
It's unique,
I'm
but
not
that-
gonna promise, but
yeah.
I'll probably watch it and fast forward
Yeah.
some.
And the way and the fight in this one was longer than any of the other fights where it shows the footage, and then the way he had to win and go through this whole thing, that was his toughest opponent by far. I think he was a better fighter than Apollo or Clubber altogether, because he was stronger than either of them. He was fast.
but I think that part of that's just the unrealisticness of it, because I don't think that you're going to see a real person like that. I think the idea is to make him into like a superhuman
Whatever he
type
hits,
thing.
he destroys.
Don't like that.
That's what his trainer guy said.
I know what he says, but
Yep.
He says it better.
Well, I'm not Russian, so.
You're not?
Honestly,
I'm taking it easy. I'm taking it slow. Not Russian.
honestly, we could have ended it way after we. talked
So
about the freeze frame.
obviously, you guys will continue to watch this because it's your favorite Rocky
Absolutely.
movie for both of you.
Yes.
For
That
coming
would
in
be
to
one
close
where
second.
if you're channel surfing and you find that movie wherever it's at, you just stay there and you keep watching. It's one of
Okay.
those movies for me.
It's in my top 5 movies of all time.
It's up there.
It's my favorite Rocky movie. It's in my top 5 movies of all time.
Like-
if you ask me what my other top 5 are, I will tell you that I don't know.
Yeah.
But
You're so confident that Rocky 3 is in the top 5, though.
Well,
yeah.
If you asked me to write a list of my top 5 movies right now, I could not do it.
I couldn't either.
Yeah,
because
if you had to decide that and that's all you had the rest of your life, you're getting
Desert Island
you're getting
movies.
sent, Desert Island or Siberia for an experiment for a year. Because that one would probably be one of them actually for me too. If I had 5, that'd be up there with Braveheart and movies like that.
So
Bloodsport.
I probably won't watch it again,
Yes.
but I am happy that I watched it this time. I could have probably skipped 1 and 2, but I didn't because you were so adamant that you needed them to appreciate the journey.
And that's true.
I feel like that is true.
You would not have appreciated that movie as much if you just watched it as a standalone.
And it definitely makes me like Apollo more, and
Yes.
I think he's the better, maybe
I-
not better character, but he's the character that I like the most.
I love Apollo Creed and I love Carl Weathers as Apollo
Yes.
Creed. But I liked the Rocky movies, so I wouldn't say the first 2 are bad. But I know that you don't really care for them. So another reason why I felt like you need to watch the first 2 is because it's kind of like eating like a Big Mac and then having Gordon Ramsay, in my opinion.
So if you loved Rocky 1, 2, or 3, or have any insights into fighting, boxing specifically, or any insights into boxing training, or any insights into how you properly care for a heart attack victim and why you might offer them CPR, you can give us a call at 1-240-668-4376 or text, or you can leave a comment on YouTube or Instagram at FlabberPod. Thank you.
Postscript. I'm remembering now they did show the Mr. T fight at the beginning of Rocky 4, and then when the 2 gloves busted and exploded, then it went to the scene with Apollo and Rocky in the
Okay.
solo boxing. So it has both. I remember that now.
Bye.